they had a band name when they invited you?
Well, by then, yeah, originally they had been called Strand, which gives a bit of a clue because there's a song by Roxy Music doing Strand, very kind of London thing.
Cool.
But they wasn't sure about that, and then they might have been called the Swankers. Right? And what's the Swanker? Well, actually, Swanker is somebody's kind of like really, hey, baby, you know, which is Steve Jones all over. But that wasn't quite right anyway. So we was talking about ideas with Malcolm, and he came up with a few ideas. One was Kid Gladlock, another one was the Dams, which the Dams had. Another one was Creme de la Creme. Fucking hate it now. It sounds like something off a restaurant menu. And the other one was Q.T. Jones and his Sex Pistols. This is maybe a little bit earlier on, get a bit mixed up. And yeah, actually it was the tail end of Wally being in the band. Right? And it was kind of funny because Steve was a singer. Vivian thought he was a bit of a cutie. He lived at Paul Cook's house because he'd fallen out with his mum and stepdad. And the postcode for where Paul Cook lives was W12QT. So I think it gave Malcolm the idea. But also, in the charts at the time was a band called Discotheque and his Sexolettes. Right? So all these kind of little ideas coming in, and then the shop was Sex. And then what's a good name for a band of Pistols? Oh, the Pistols from the Sex Shop, the Sex Pistols. Q.T. Jones and the Sex
Great brand, yeah.
But actually, Taylor and Wally being in the band, I remember me and Wally said, we don't like the Q.T. Jones thing. It's a bit naff. But also, we don't want to be in the band with the lead singer, we want to be the band. So I said, let's drop the Q.T. Jones bit and just be the Sex Pistols.
Yeah, plus he's a better guitar player than singer, probably.
Yeah.
Steve.
Yeah, so this was just on the cusp of meeting John and getting John around. And when we met him, what he called the Sex Pistols, he said, that's so terrible, it's great.
But before you met John, that was the short time that Malcolm went to New York?
Well, he'd been going backwards and forwards.
Okay, so all the time he went back and forth.
Yeah, he used to go to kind of clothes conventions to buy old clothes.
Okay.
Now, over the years, I've become friends with Sylvain from the New York Times.
Yeah.
And I said to Sylvain, how did you meet Malcolm? He said, well, I met him at a clothes convention. And I said, well, what was you doing at a clothes convention? He said, well, didn't you know? I said, no. He said, I used to have a blue jean shop. I said, did you? He said, yeah, hell man, I sold a pair of dungarees to Janis Joplin. He was really proud. I said, well, how did you get involved with Malcolm in New York? He said, well, we met him at this thing, and we took him out to some clubs, you know, where bands like the Ramones were starting out, and
Right.
Richard Howell, and
Suicide.
Malcolm started bringing back flyers and things. Now, none of those people had made any records at that time.
Yeah.
We had no idea what they sounded like, but he would bring back pictures. This all gets kind of a bit mixed up in my mind time-wise. But at one stage, there was talk, after Steve had left and before we got John, of getting Richard Howell to come over as a singer.
All right.
I've seen pictures of him. But it was never going to work. He had no money, we had no money to fly him over, but we've seen this look. Maybe a month later on, we met John, and he looked exactly like Richard Howell.
Okay.
But John had no idea who Richard Howell was. He'd never heard of him.
Yeah.
Richard Howell hadn't really done him.
Sure.
But Malcolm had brought some other things back, and one of the things was a list of songs, which I didn't quite understand what it was. But looking back, it was probably a set list, you know, the bands have to remember what they played. Now, Jordan was talking earlier on about what was going on in London in the mid-70s, which was a 3-day week, rubbish piled high in the streets, power cuts, IRA bombings, you can't remember that one, but there was a real air of despondency. Now, this list of songs that Malcolm had pinned up on this pinboard, he had a pinball by the door with really weird things, and there was another thing I remember from this guy called Fred Vermorel, who was Malcolm's friend from art school, and one of the postcards said that it was like a picture of the Holloway Road, and he'd written to Malcolm, he said, Malcolm, do the doors of Camberwell or Goldsmith Art College open onto the King's Road? I think not. Frank, you know, there's all kind of things like that. And what's this guy about? But he picked up this list of things, and the first song on the list was open brackets, in the arms of, closed back brackets, Venus de Milo. Right? Now, I was at arts college by then, and I know that David's sculpture of Venus de Milo has got no arms because they've fallen off. So I thought, well, that's an interesting name for a song. And the next song was called Blank Generation. And I thought, well, that's kind of interesting. And I'm putting all this together in my mind with what was going on in London and this sort of feeling of kind of boredom, ennui, hopelessness, a bit like London, I don't know, the fucking Brexit thing. And I got the idea for Pretty Women. It was an idea. It came directly from those kind of things, which was like a sort of a primal scream kind of thing, you know, hopelessness, but you're going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
And that was one of the very first songs.
So it was Richard Hell's set list.
But I met Richard Hell later on, and his whole idea for Blank Generation was nothing to do with that. His whole idea of Blank Generation was that we're an open book and we can do what we like.
Okay.
But I kind of being sort of subsumed in the grain
so you took like a
London.
blueprint for Pretty Vacant.
Yeah.
Perfect.
But it was because Malcolm was going backwards and forwards.
Because he worked for the New York Dolls.
And at some stage after that he did, yeah. Maybe not on his first trip, he met them, and then he went and helped them because they'd broken up, and then he got them back together again, and then made them really break up.
Sylvain,
and John Gage.
I think he had this fashion idea for them to dress up in this red.
Very patient, yeah. Yeah, I made an album.
Not his best idea. It broke the dolls.
It broke the dolls, yeah. But I do remember that they did their album cover, all in red paint and leather, and there was those little kind of Louis XIV boots.
Little boots.
And everybody had red on,
They were really
everything red,
nice, yeah.
apart from David Jansen, and he had grey socks on, and Billy went, oh look, he's gone sparkly. Which was quite funny.
So then you ran into John, and he somehow looked like Richard Hell without knowing Richard Hell.
Yeah.
Because his blueprint was just being totally anti to everything, to prog rock, to krautrock, or
Well,
what was
he says that, but I know that he would go to the roundhouse and out of pictures of all of us in the early days, he was the only one who had long hair. So, but I think he saw the error of his ways and quickly changed.
He had long hair the time you met him?
No, but pictures from not long before he met him.
I saw that too.
But because we was coming from a slightly skinny kind of moddy kind of background thing.
I see.
So that's quite something in itself. But it was good though, because he brought ideas to the band when we started writing, because he liked people like Peter Hamill and Hawkwind.
Yes, he was a Hawkwind Can fan.
See, I remember as a young boy, well, sort of 15, 16, being very torn because Hawkwind, who I've never seen, were doing a free concert down the Portobello Road that started about 2:30, and it was the first game of the football season, Queen's Park Rangers, who I support. And what was I going to do? But I was quite lucky because I went down the Portobello Road to check this band out, because as a young man I'd heard that they had this dancer called Stacey
Oh, yes.
who took her top off. And you know what, I went down there, thought the band was terrible, but she took her top off in the first number. So I've seen that, and I still had time to go to football. It was great.
And back then, like bands like Hawkwind, they would play either for 30 minutes or for 5 hours, right?
Well, I don't know if you look at that was all I ever saw.
And you just stayed for the first song.
Yeah. Because they got to the money shop right straight away.
I mean, nowadays Hawkwind is totally cult band because they started many movements. So
Maybe, and
yeah.
out of them, one of the people I'd met earlier on, used to hang around, and there was a bit of a scene down the Portobello Road, was
And
Lemmy,
they're still around.
who left in full Motorhead. You know, Lemmy
Yes.
would kind of hang out with some of the pro-punk rockers.
Yes.
And it was funny, there was a pub, this is when the pubs used to shut on Saturday afternoons, and this is more of a general pub thing. The pub would shut at 3 o'clock, half an hour drinking up time, and there was a crowd of us, you know, who wanted to be sort of punk rockers, but nobody called it punk yet. And it was me, Mick Jones, Brian James, Tony James, Rat Scoders, Lemmy, and this other guy, Steve Dior, who ended up becoming Fat Steve, right? And we all decided for something to do was to go to this quite famous greasy spoon cafe called the Hall of the Mountain Grill in Portobello Road. So we all went in there, had in chips and beans and something like that. And then somebody shouted out, "Run up," which meant run out without paying, right? Which is not that clever, but we did. But one guy, not only did he get caught, because when everybody went out, because they didn't have any money, because we spent it all on beer. Not only did he get caught, but he happened to have enough money on him to pay for everybody. And that was Steve Dior, right? And because of that, he never really quite got accepted into the punk fraternity. So it was kind of, but Lemmy was one of those people who was involved in that. So everybody kind of was into mingling.
I mean, that's just a great group of people who started many things. I mean, there is pictures of the dance with Lemmy, or sometimes he even filled in as a bass player. So, yeah.
And in fact, in later years, I think it was in 2003, we did a big gig in London, like a reform gig with Sex Pistols, but the Pistols at the Palace. But there was a Crystal Palace, which is a big sports arena, you know, and we're not kind of renowned for having more than one album's worth of songs. So, when we came out, you could see the whole front row of punk rockers had almost had a bet on what song we was going to open up with. And you know what? Just for a laugh, we did Silver Machine.
Yeah.
And they all got it wrong.
It's still a great song, Silver Machine. Yeah, that's the one that Lemmy sings, I think.
And he put it in that one.
So in Malcolm, was he close